Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Woo! Indeed, away we go. What is going on, you guys? This is Purple Dailies Before I Die. I'm Jessi. He's Leighton. He's Jason. I am still reeling, you guys, from the emotional roller coaster that I was on. Anybody who followed my Twitter witnessed it. I was going to remove my tattoo after watching the Vikings in that first half. I was going through the motions. I know you both were as well. Let's all just big freaking round of applause. Round of applause. Little skull.
Insane.
My goodness. Minnesota Vikings coming away victorious 27-24 at Soldier Field. Didn't feel that way. If you woke up and just checked the score, you're like, oh, cool, Vikings won, as to be expected. Down 10-6 at half, which felt, you guys, to me, like 30-3. Like, there was nothing good about that for the Vikings. The Bears extend the lead, but a 21-7 rout in the fourth seals the victory. Plus, that fourth quarter turnaround, boys, record-setting in a few different ways. J.J. McCarthy becomes the first QB to make his debut and overcome a 10-point or more fourth-quarter deficit since Steve Young, yes, Steve Young, in 1985. First player in NFL history to account for 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and win in his NFL debut. And the first player since Cam Newton with 2+ passing touchdowns and 1 or more rushing TDs in his NFL debut. Jason, I want to get to you and your thoughts as you were behind enemy lines in Chicago. But Leighton, how are you? How are we feeling?
Feeling ecstatic. I mean, that game, when you say it was a 10-6 deficit at halftime, it felt that was the biggest 10-6 deficit I've ever felt in my entire life.
Yeah.
It was a 3-score, 3-touchdown lead. It was a 4-point game, and yet it felt like there was no way the Vikings could come back in this game. Especially after the pick 6 happened. That was just let's wrap it up. Let's just get on to week 2. Nothing was going in the right direction whatsoever. But I mean, the way J.J. McCarthy responded was just it was unbelievable. I mean, the kid's a winner. That's what he does. That's what he's been doing. That's what he's going to continue to do. And this one game isn't going to represent what his career is going to be and what it will be, but it's just a small snippet into his brain with all the pressure, with all the Monday Night Football, showing his childhood photos. It was the first meaningful game he'd played in 600 days, and yet he could have easily folded and just, let's get on to Atlanta, week 2, Sunday night. Let's make this primetime game a good one. But instead, he didn't even seem to be bothered by anything that was happening around him, and he just went out there and got it done. But yeah, Jason, I'm very interested to hear what you have to say with boots on the ground. I would have been... How
many times did you consider leaving Soldier Field during that first half?
That's what I was just about to say. I would have been very quick to be like, I might get out of here.
Peace.
I know better, especially because I had just posted on the Sleeper Vikings account I run the other day the 33-zip comeback, and people I said, imagine leaving this one on halftime. We all know someone who did, specifically here. And everyone tagged Judd, which was hilarious. But a lot of people shared their stories. I was like, if you follow me on Twitter, yesterday was an interesting day. It was the 10-year anniversary of when my dad passed away. And he's the reason, despite many flaws in our relationship, that I'm a Vikings fan. It was the one thing that brought us together. So I wasn't going to leave. I went to this game specifically because the season opener, the premiere of McCarthy, all lined up on that date. I was like, well, I have to go. I have to wear his jacket. It was insane.
Incredible jacket, by the way, too.
Dude, that thing.
Beautiful.
That thing probably needs some work, but I don't want to have it done because I'm like, I'm not screwing up. I'm not risking it. So I'm like Taylor botching it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take a route that nobody's going to expect, but this will encapsulate my story. And I don't know if you guys have seen all the Star Wars movies, but yes, I'm doing a Star Wars analogy here.
Not one.
Wow. Okay.
But please, let's see how it lands with none.
You aren't the audience. Our friend Dane Mizutani from the Pioneer Press and I hung out yesterday, and I went over it with him, and he's like, I've only seen each of them like one time, but this makes sense. So in the Star Wars prequels, there's 3 separate villains, and each of them represents part of what Darth Vader will become in the future. So you guys all know Darth Vader, I'm assuming, even if you haven't seen the movies. And each one represents a small part of what Vader will eventually become. And I was having this thought, if you have Josh Dobbs' mobility, ability to run into the end zone, if you have Kirk's comeback ability, and you have Darnold's gunslinger mentality, and if JJ has 80 to 90% of those skills from each of those guys, we got our freaking Darth Vader, dude. And wouldn't you know it, in the fourth quarter in Star Wars, this is a really weird thing to share if you haven't seen it, but he goes in, and when he turns to the dark side, he wreaks havoc on the Jedi Temple, and everyone's in shock. That was Soldier Field last night. They were in their happy place. They could not have been less worried about anything happening. And they were chirping. And I want to give credit where it's due. I know Judd told me to be careful, as did a few other people, but Soldier Field, everyone was super friendly. They chirped, but it was all in good fun.
Yeah.
But they were feeling themselves. And then it's like Darth Vader showed up and just wrecked house. And it was everything that those of us who've been really pushing McCarthy, I think all of us understood that it wasn't going to be something where he'd show up and start throwing for 400, 500 yards a game. It was never about that. It was about, what is that sicko mode mentality that can be flipped on at a moment's notice? And obviously, being at the game, you can't see everything, but I was checking Twitter as I do. And once I started to see, and my wife started to text me, the clips of that look in his eyes, I was like, oh, this is what we were promised. Insane. It was surreal. I got maybe 2 hours sleep last night. I was too hyped. Threw down some Portillo's at like 1 a.m. To celebrate. But, man, that was – I cannot wait for Sunday night. I think that place is going to erupt. If they announce the defense on Sunday Night Football, no offense to the defense, but that is a travesty. You have J.J. McCarthy's home debut coming off that performance, Adam Thielen's return to Minnesota. We got to get the offense their love on Sunday night out the tunnel.
Well, and the thing is that you mentioned the U.S. Bank and what the vibe is going to be there. The vibe would be completely different if that game just continued how those first three quarters had went.
I was
not
thinking
only
that
the
at
vibe
the
in
game.
U.S. Bank Stadium, but the vibe of the entire practice facility, the franchise. Because now, it was one game and it's his NFL debut, and guys aren't going to turn their heads and be like, this guy can't do it with one game under his belt. But it's the fact that he did do it. And now they're looking at him and they're like, oh, we've already seen that he can do it. Now I'm going to show up to practice early on Wednesday and I'm going to be ready to go. I'm going to show up, a couple minutes early to my team meeting because I'm fired up and I want to play for this dude because he can do anything. And when it's at its absolute lowest point, I said it in the video yesterday, he was in the freaking gutter, and then he's able to crawl out in his NFL debut in his first meaningful football game in over 600 days. And he's able to pull off something like that. It's remarkable.
He's a kid, right? Like him to have the wherewithal to do that and to speak to grown men and to get them to rally and to believe behind him. I love what Aaron Jones told the media about what JJ said to them, saying, hey, was there anywhere else you guys would rather be than right here?
Amazing.
If I was in that huddle, I actually would have been so
like,
mad.
Run
I would have been
through
so
a
mad
wall.
that he said that.
God, I would just bust out like incredible. Like that's so impressive. That shows the leadership and the character, and for him to continue to maintain that belief, like this is the team that we can do it. I mean, what he achieved was incredible because let's be honest, it was a miserable introduction to the NFL for him. It was not good. His O-line did not help him. Defense wasn't great for the first half. Chicago was absolutely in control. And then Bears are going to bear, right? Like they did what they tend to do. So you had that kind of always in the back of your mind, but all the flowers to J.J. McCarthy without question, and to KOC for some really brilliant time management toward the end. Aaron Jones, another guy that I want to get into, but in general, it was life of a Vikings fan. You got everything in being a Vikings fan last night. You got the pain and the fear and the I'm giving up on this. And then you get the high and like, okay, yep, I'm back in. We're going to watch on Sunday night. We're all in. J.J. McCarthy, the man. We knew it. We never doubted. It was, like I said, an emotional train wreck, but it was part of being a Vikings fan for sure.
I want to prop out Leighton real quick because he mentioned his video last night. A great video after the game. If you're not following Leighton on TikTok or Instagram, what are you doing? Yeah. Leighton's the GOAT.
Right.
But I do want to say, not only that comment from JJ in the huddle, but the fact that Kevin O'Connell went up to him at halftime and was like, "You're gonna win. You're gonna lead us to victory." I will say, like, hearing that makes sense coming from Kevin O'Connell, and he was right. I'm glad he said that because the play calling on both sides of the ball in the first half didn't seem like they actually thought that could happen. It was. I tweeted it and the Score North account shared it, but it was nonsensical. It was everything we'd been told to expect, but the opposite in every phase of the game. So I don't know where that came from, but once the team's like, wait, maybe we should contain Caleb, and maybe we should lean on Jordan Mason, who we acquired, and maybe we should let JJ open it up. It was like, oh, okay, so the thing we've all been hyped for is actually winning football. And credit on KO for realizing whatever that plan wasn't working and changing it up, him and Flores. But I'm just glad we saw it, and once we did, the floodgates opened.
Well, and I think that was kind of my prediction last week was that they weren't going to put JJ in harm's way early in the game just because they wanted to get him into the flow of thing. And that and the play calling, I believe, would have worked if they just would have been executed to a point to where the offensive line just wasn't making it happen. Like, it gets to a point in football where it doesn't matter what play you call. As long as you have the players to execute it, it's going to work, to where the Vikings should have been able to execute some of these run plays. JJ got tripped up on that sack on the first or second drive of the game to where he probably could have ran for that first down. And those are the things that kind of change the momentum of just going 3 and out and then actually seeing a first down happen. But yeah, it got to a point to where, okay, if we're actually going to try and win this game, we got to just start throwing the ball and slinging it. And even then, it felt very controlled and it wasn't forced. And it was methodical drives. It wasn't like, oh, we're down 11, we got to panic. Let's just start throwing the ball up the sideline to Justin Jefferson and see what happens and see if he can make a play. It felt natural almost to those play calls to get back into the game.
Yeah, I mean, and without question, obviously, offensively, it hurts when you don't have Darrisaw. I think that was first and foremost, right? Without question, you have poor JJ's getting no time, no space, not able to execute what he's been trying to have implemented. I want to give a shout out, though, to some of those play calls. Aaron Jones, that laser to Aaron Jones, absolutely incredible. You're like, all right, there's JJ, right? There he is. But even more so, Aaron Jones becoming that pass catching back, while Jordan Mason can be the other type of back for them, I think is going to work really, really well, especially in the interim when Jordan Addison is out, when you don't maybe have some of those wide weapons like that. I think that's going to be great. Jay, what do you think?
I agree. That specific play, and I reshared my video from training camp last night, was a shorter version of a play they ran at training camp and joint practices for a touchdown. Aaron Jones up the sideline, dropping it in. I'll say this with McCarthy, and I noticed this yesterday. It was very interesting, and I think it's going to really be seen in that pass game with the running backs especially. But we saw it with Jefferson, and we saw it with the interception. We heard all offseason they're working on his touch. And we saw a couple touch passes last night that were pretty dang good. And then we saw some that were pretty bad, including that interception.
That was when I threw it in, for the record. Like, that's when I was like,
100%.
Nope, we're done. I'm done.
Totally agree. Yeah, that's that moment where I was like, that's almost the moment where you feel so awful, you just feel numb as a Vikings fan. But I'll say this. Obviously, you have to throw touch passes as an NFL QB, and I think he's making strides even from the beginning of camp. But there's almost something to be said is like, dude, this kid throws a freaking bullet, and that, like, you don't need to change what works too much. Again, I'm not saying just don't have him throw with touch. He's got to work on that, and he's improving. But when he was just allowed to be like, just play your ball and just throw these absolute bullets, things got really fun. And I think that there is a balance of, hey, embrace what you're already great at and then add in those layers over time. I think that with a young kid like that, the thing you need to avoid is being so focused on what you're being coached on improving that you just try it even if you're not there yet, which I think that pick six was. I think he didn't quite have that touch and timing figured out, and he just floated it right to right. Ironic, his first touchdown went to one of his teammates from last year, but wrong way, but technically speaking.
Pain. Yes.
Well, and I'm not comparing him to Josh Allen in any sort of way, but Josh Allen's first year in the league, he he didn't have those touch balls. He had a freaking fastball,
Yep.
and the accuracy was terrible, and he couldn't get that under wraps. And then, years. I remember when we sent Diggs to Buffalo, everyone was laughing because we're sending Diggs to the least accurate quarterback in the NFL right now. Like, what is
Diggs even said he thought we tried to do him dirty.
Yeah, it's like what people were expecting him. Send him to Josh Allen. He's not going to be able to do anything there. Like, if he wants catches, don't go to Josh Allen. And obviously, we know how that turned out. But yeah, it's those throws, and it's those types of throws, the situational throws, and that he's going to get better at throughout his career. The thing that really just made me mad about the pick six was that just felt like the last thing that could have happened in that moment. You have the ball on the plus side of the 50. The defense was actually, for as much as they didn't sack Caleb Williams, they were actually playing pretty good besides that opening drive touchdown. They weren't playing that bad. They held them to 10 points in the half, and then they got a stop right in the first thing in the second half. And the Vikings were driving. The run game was going, and then you get into a third and long, and you force it, and that's when just the whole momentum changed. But obviously, we know what happens in the end, but that was the last thing that could have happened in that moment in time, was throwing that pick six.
Yeah, it was one of those moments where the Bears fans, and I mentioned this on Ventline last night in my frantic Ventline appearance from across the street from Soldier Field, but Bears fans, they were elated, and I likened it to probably how I know I felt this way, but I could only imagine being at U.S. Bank for Kevin O'Connell's first game, home opponent, divisional, a team that had beat the crap out of you the year before, right? First year head coach, and they were elated. They were like, "This is it. This is the next. We've done it.
It always is.
This is
It
the
always
Bears
is.
now."
Always is.
And I kid you not, some of the guys next to me by the end of the game were yelling like, "What is this, Matt Eberflus? Like, welcome back, Eberflus!" And it was the funniest turnaround. But that pick six, it felt, and we know to say better, but we also know why we feel the way we do. It felt like the game was over. It did. And I don't know why, call it sappiness, given like the significance of yesterday, whatever. I was like, I'm not going to give up just yet, even though I feel like it. I feel there's something in the air. And this Vikings team, they're always must-watch TV, for better or worse. They're always going to do some crazy stuff.
I honestly felt the same way. I didn't feel like we were out of it because, one, it was only an 11-point game. It was just a lack of, I haven't seen the ball get driven down the field yet. I haven't seen that. That's why I'm giving up. I haven't seen them move the ball.
Credit to Caleb Williams, too, who I thought was really brilliant. I think he played very well. I know Bears fans kind of passed out. I thought he looked good for the most part. And then he kind of looked like Mitch Trubisky towards the end of it all. Like
Caleb did what he did at USC a lot, which is show some of the most impressive, and I'm an SC fan, some of the most impressive improvisational and athletic skills you've ever seen from a QB, and then just make some boneheaded decisions and lose his accuracy when it mattered most.
Right. For sure.
Completely. Other than like that last drive where we were playing the softest prevent defense imaginable, which also that was when I started to really have a panic attack. But he was just throwing over guys on the sideline, things like that. They have work to do in Chicago. I think that if they can make it hit, that's going to be a scary combination. Not as scary as KO and JJ though.
Apparently,
Yeah,
or
no, I agree.
big leg Bill. Like, we have to give a shout out to him for hitting a 59-yarder to at least keep some of that hope alive. That ties a Soldier Field record, by the way, boys.
Yeah, I was the special teams in the first half I felt was terrible besides Will Reichard. The punt coverage, the kick coverage, it was all bad. But shout out to Miles Price. Did amazing. Secured his job moving forward, and we'll see how that plays out. I don't know if the Bears special teams coverage was just very bad, but he did great. But Jason, I don't know if you were aware of when that 59-yard field goal. I don't think KOC would even considered kicking that if it was a 59-yarder. They moved it so they had it 5 yards ahead. I think it was Naylor who caught it. Yeah, Naylor caught it towards the sideline. Yeah. They had it spotted 5 yards further.
Close.
And then at the
further or closer?
Closer. So then they sent Reichard out there, and then the refs, right before he was about to kick it, stopped the game and were like, we're moving it back. And the look on KOC's face was like, he couldn't believe it. And then
Well, that's funny because in the stadium we were confused because they said, and obviously, weirdly enough, the like most inaccurate information you get is in the stadium a lot of the time. But the PA announcer was like on for the 61-yard field goal, and I was like, whoa. And then I saw 59. I was like, okay, that's 6 feet. That's still impressive. But I was like, kind of thrown off because they had said 61 in the stadium. So I thought it was even further than that when it happened.
And there was 9 seconds left. It was 9 or
That
11.
That was
If they would have taken back that kickoff after that field goal, I probably then would have considered leaving.
yeah.
Or even just miss and
They
then
got real close. Like, that was a
somehow-
pretty deep run too. I was like, look at how this is.
I
gonna
was
go.
surprised they didn't have somebody back there to return it. I was kind of shocked that they didn't try to do an Auburn and have somebody back there just in case.
Yeah, well, and I was surprised they didn't. KOC just didn't have JJ drop back and throw it out of bounds just to make sure the kick was the last play of the half.
Special teams. I know you shouted out Miles Price, absolutely deserved. I want to shout out perhaps the most important kick return of the day, and one that in the moment I was nauseous in the stadium. Shout out to Ty Chandler. He was a guy who was supposed to get cut. And I say that not saying I was rooting for it or any of us were, but it was just the math was mathing. There were X amount of roster spots. It wasn't expected he'd make the team in any 53-man projections, especially after camp started. His awareness of what to do and to look at the side, I didn't even see him look at the sideline during the game, but then to watch the replay and be like, hey, because if Chicago intentionally did that knowing they would get the 2-minute warning and 1 timeout, and to take that away, once he started returning it, I was panicked that he didn't just fall over and not risk a fumble. Everything in my heart told me, I was like, oh, he's going to fumble this ball. And he didn't. And that ended up, that's an extra timeout for Chicago. That's an extra first down, whatever it is that the Vikings may have to do, or an extra 10, 15 yards, whatever that looks like. That changed the game as far as, yes, the task that Chicago now has to meet is significantly harder.
As a broadcasting nerd, I also love that ABC had that camera angle and was able to see KOC making the call. Those little intricacies that you're like, yes, okay, now this all makes sense. All right, we can give credit where credit's due on making those calls and, again, give KOC the shout out he deserves for that move.
Yeah, it was the difference between the Bears having the ball with 56 seconds and no timeouts and 16 and no timeouts. So it was the game pretty much to bring that ball out. I also don't know why they just didn't kick the ball out of bounds.
I could not believe it, or even attempt an onside kick. I really expected the onside kick. I can't remember. I know they've thrown out so many different rules. It doesn't have to be within 2 minutes. You just have to announce it, but it has to be.
You just have to announce it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was hearing different things from different people, but
kick it straight out of bounds, have the ball just placed wherever it went out of bounds, and you still have the 2-minute warning, and you have a chance to get you're maybe 20 yards further back than you originally would be, but you have 40 more seconds now. It doesn't make
I still think that that's going to be one of the things with Chicago. Look, I hate to admit it. So I think Ben Johnson, if he can get Caleb Williams' head on right, is going to be a good head coach. But that's one of those things where the full picture of coaching an NFL game and being responsible for your entire staff and every asset. And KO struggled with this sometimes early on, and he even admitted it and grew in that. But that was one of those things where that situational awareness probably bit him in the rear quite a bit there.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, Leighton, particularly, are you happy you didn't have to paint your nails this week? Because that's one of your punishments, which I absolutely adore, by the way. I want to get in on that kind of, because I just love betting and doing stupid, silly things. So shout out for that. What's the worst punishment you have on the list for if the Vikings are to lose to said team?
Worst punishment? So the last one is I have to do whatever the top comment says if they lose to the Packers, week 17. However, I do have in quotations, it has to be legal and it can't ruin my life because the comments get absolutely out of pocket. Yeah. But the leading candidate for that one right now is apply at your local pizza store and then deliver pizzas on your bike around the neighborhood.
When that Packers game
that's
is
going to be
in
tough.
Winter,
yeah,
right?
I'd have to get the bike with the thick tires.
Fat bikes, fat tires.
Yeah,
that's tough because you'd have to get hired at a pizza place that specifically uses bikes, which isn't a lot.
Yeah, well, it'll have to take some finessing, and then,
if
but
you
yeah,
can-
so the thing with the nail painting, I was getting very nervous because it was paint your nails until the Vikings' next win, and after that pick six, I was
all season.
I was getting very nervous because I was like, Falcons, oh no, Bengals, oh no, overseas, but then we're already a month in painting my nails.
I mean, my daughter would have loved to come over and give you a manicure. It's like her favorite thing in the world. So if that were to
Right.
come to fruition, she could do such things. Speaking of, before we dive into comments from YouTube, where we will talk a little bit more about Miles Price, I want to know what's our comfort level now heading into another primetime game Sunday against the Falcons. Like you said, it's at the bank, which we love. However, the way that they won in Chicago isn't necessarily sustainable. That's not the MO that you want to move forward to. But how are we feeling heading into Sunday?
Yeah, it's not sustainable. I mean, if you play that type of game against a lot of other teams in the NFL, you don't win. It's the Bears. The Bears are known for doing stuff like that
Pure
and
things,
playing
yeah.
games like that. Falcons are a better team, in my opinion. Penix is looking like a better quarterback right now. They have better weapons. Bijan Robinson is a lot better running back than DeAndre Swift is. Can get into all the X's and O's. I just think winning that game is a big sigh of relief for the whole team. See one go through the hoop. Now you're at home. Yes, it is prime time. Yes, you're going to want to put on a big show for the home crowd. I think it's going to be a close game for sure.
Mm-hmm. Jason?
I'm going to say something crazy. I think those types of wins are sustainable with Kevin O'Connell. We've seen it time and time again.
I can't. My heart.
I can't do it.
It's
Here's
true.
the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the problem. Is like, we can't say they're not. Chicago in year one, or not Chicago. Pardon me. Buffalo, the Colts game. Like all these things. Like it just is what it is. These comebacks. Atlanta with Josh Dobbs. I don't know what it is, but here's the thing. And he's had these quarterbacks do this. But he has somebody just as psychotic as he is now. And, like, Kirk had comebacks. Dobbs had comebacks. Darnold had comebacks. I don't want to take away from those. But him and JJ are on that psycho level. I don't want it to be the same. I'm with you, Jessi.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a lot more comfortable. I was watching yesterday from the airport from the hotel. And Stephen A. Smith was talking about the Bengals. And they were asking him, hey, they had 7 yards of offense in the second half. What's your panic level about Joe Burrow? He said, I'm not panicked whatsoever. This was an anomaly. He said, there's no reason to worry at all. I'm like, they had 7 yards in a half. Do you understand that? And I was like, if McCarthy makes one mistake,
The Browns.
I know Stephen A. will be all over him, and yet he is just saying, the Bengals will be fine. Joe Burrow went 14 for 23 yards, 113 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, 3 rushing yards, no rushing TDs. J.J. McCarthy, 13 for 20, 143 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. So I think there's a new 9 in town, right? So if Bengals fans in the national media are saying that they can't be freaking out over there and that, it's going to be fine, the first half of a game, of your first NFL game, I think, Leighton, you said it, 600 days without actual competitive football outside of a couple preseason snaps. Looked a little rusty, looked a little off, got it together. I don't think that that's going to be something we have to worry about sustaining.
I agree with you.
I think the secret will be Aaron Jones should I think Jordan Mason should start getting a lot more carries early on. And to Jesse's point earlier, I think Aaron Jones could be a change of pace back and a great option in the pass game. I think the Adrian Peterson, not comparing the two, kind of role as far as your every down back, and then using Aaron Jones kind of like we used Chester Taylor back in the day. I think that's going to be a way to really get this offense moving.
And that'll just help with his overall snap count too. And
Yep.
Aaron Jones is, he can't be
100%.
taking the load that he used to. He can't be taking the load he used to take. But getting back to sustaining those kind of games, I think it is sustainable coming back in football games for sure, especially with JJ McCarthy and KOC. It's just, if we were playing anyone but the Bears, it's just hard for me, especially with just the throw to DJ Moore on the sideline.
You have a better outcome of making it a thing against a team like the Bears,
Right.
basically, right? Like you have your likelihood to be victorious in those
Yes.
situations against that type of opponent, 100%.
100%. I just keep going back to the Caleb Williams throw to DJ Moore. That was a wide open touchdown, and he just completely overthrew him.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that's just like that. The whole game has changed if that's a completed pass.
I know. Let's knock out some comments from YouTube coming from Ventline, Purple Daily's Ventline last night, which shout out to everybody who joined in. 10,000 people. Absolutely incredible. You guys are the best. We already knew this, but even more so. I know everybody, again, emotions were high. Whole lot of energy happening last night. But for a Monday night to get that many folks tuned into Ventline, fantastic. Comment from Noah M says, can we talk about Miles Price? Absolute stud. 24.5-yard average on kick returns, 2 total, and a 17-yard average on punt returns, 4 total. So the question I have for you boys is, and Jason, we'll start with you. Many were worried when Rondale Moore got injured in preseason, and rightfully so. But what's your comfort level in Miles Price going forward?
Miles Price looked better in camp than Rondale Moore did, even when he was healthy. Look, I think. And I don't want that to sound like, Rondale Moore was a bad signing. He was getting back up to speed. You tear your ACL, you have that happen. It's going to take time, right? Especially when you're not really in like a stationary position. Not to take away from somebody like Darrisaw who plays the offensive line. They use their legs a lot, but your whole point is to be pure speed, right? And I think he was kind of working his way there. Obviously, what happened is a tragic situation for his career. But Miles Price showed a lot of flashes throughout camp. I wasn't quite ready to crown him the returner until the preseason games happened. But, man, it's crazy to think we're so used to boom or bust at kick return for the Vikings. We haven't had a lot of success. But then you look back, Kene was either touchdown or nothing. Cordero Patterson a lot of the time was touchdown or nothing. And now we have a guy who, didn't get any touchdowns, but he was putting us in insane field position. And to be honest, I would almost rather have that pretty consistently than the occasional touchdown. Because people forget even the best of the best, like Devin Hester, you're not returning kickoffs for touchdowns every single game, even with the old rules. So for me, I am extremely happy about what I saw out of him. I think that if that's something that he can consistently do, maybe not score a ton, but just put the team in short field situations, keep him around for as long as possible. We've been begging for that forever.
Leighton,
yeah, I agree.
You shouted him out earlier. What you think?
Yeah, I said on I think it was the first episode we did, I believe the punt or kick returner is on the team. It's just a matter of getting to a game and actually seeing it happen and getting those real live reps. And he took advantage of every single rep he got. And like Jason said, that was a big part of this comeback. Getting the ball on the plus 50 sometimes after a punt, after your defense just got a huge stop, you already got some momentum rolling from that stop, and then you get a punt return of 15, 16, 17 yards, and you're that much further to midfield or even across midfield now starting your drive, again, for a young quarterback. That's huge for momentum. That's huge for mindset of just saying we need 20 yards just to, get a score. And the way Will Reichard's kicking the ball, it was all around great stuff from Miles Price.
Our next comment coming to us from T Nomad says, Darrisaw's absence was very noticeable, which it was. Absolutely. My question then for you boys is, if J.J. McCarthy can look that poised under pressure late in the game without Christian Darrisaw, how big of a difference can Darrisaw make to the Vikings offense when he does return? Leighton, why don't you start us off?
Yeah. Darrisaw being there, it's not only himself being an all-pro, but he has a rookie guard playing next to him as well. And Darrisaw can make up for a lot of mistakes or just lack of experience that Donovan Jackson has. He can help out and yet block his guy at the same time. He can do some of that stuff in both the run and pass game. And you kind of see it with the Lions. They lost Ragnow, their center, and he made those guards so much better than they actually are just because of the amount of stuff he was able to take on by himself, to where, maybe Darrisaw can now take on one-on-one. They can leave him on an island out there. School, you're not doing that. You're not, I mean, you have to, but you don't want to where Donovan Jackson can now roam and help out either Kelly or Darrisaw, whoever may need it. But yeah, when Darrisaw gets back in there, I don't know if the entire scheme changes, but those 2-3 yard rushes all of a sudden maybe turn into 5 and 6, and you're staying ahead of the sticks. And it's a completely different game plan when you have the second most important player on the offense, arguably position on the offense, back in the lineup when he's an all-pro caliber player.
Right. Jason, agree, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, he helps McCarthy, no doubt, but I think we're talking about the wrong person he helps, which is, and you alluded to this a little bit, Leighton, but Donovan Jackson, and here's why I say this. Last night, Donovan Jackson had an 88.1 pass blocking grade, 0 sacks allowed, 0 pressures allowed, and 100% pass blocking efficiency without Christian Darrisaw. Imagine not only how it helps McCarthy, right? Because if the whole offensive line's in a good situation, then McCarthy's in a great situation. But if Donovan Jackson was that great in his debut on the road on what, let's call it what it is, and if I were to do that, we'd have to bleep me, but very stinky, nasty, awful turf or field grass, which I believe personally is probably the reason Darrisaw was scratched right before the game. What is he going to do with a healthy Darrisaw next to him on a actually put together playing surface? That was, for me, of course, it helps McCarthy 100%. I will say, I don't know if anyone can remember, but did the Vikings, I know there's a couple delay of games which they got to work on, but were there any false starts? There was a lot on the Bears. I was shocked, given how loud it was, that the Vikings didn't, at least to my memory, have any or very few false start penalties last night.
Yeah, no, I can't really remember one.
I don't remember one, and I remember I was shocked that the Bears were getting so many at their home field with a guy who started NFL games before. And I know that offensive line's new as well, working together, but so is ours, and we had a first-time starter at quarterback. That was in a hostile environment. That was very weird. So, yeah, look, the offensive line was getting their butts handed to them at the beginning, and by that I mean the left tackle position. It just is what it is. Fun fact, I didn't realize this until a Bears fan pointed out. Their starting corner was from our practice squad last year, and our left tackle was from their practice squad last year. Funny how that works.
Fun.
But once it came together, I do think the offensive line, they obviously got it together towards the end, but the lack of penalties was crazy to me. I think with Darrisaw, that's even going to be better. I don't know how, but he's obviously amazing, but somehow I think that they're false starts, things like that we'll see throughout the season will be a lot lower with this group than what we're used to in the past. And I think obviously the pass protection on the left side is going to be great.
Well, and one of the most underrated things about traits about an offensive line is it takes time to mesh and get chemistry with these guys, to where Donovan Jackson was taking, I don't know the exact count, but 50-50 reps with Darrisaw in training camp and then school, because Darrisaw would place him 11 on 11, then he'd sit out some, and joint practices he was here and there. But when Darrisaw gets back, and then those guys are able to mesh on the left side, and then Ryan Kelly's able to get a feel for, now I have this left tackle over here that he can. I'm not worried about the left side as much. I can focus on Will Fries, one of the highest paid guards in the league, and then Brian O'Neill. Once all of these guys start to mesh, it's going to be a thing of beauty, because the chemistry is going to come together later on in the season, and that's only, again, going to help a young quarterback in his first NFL season playing.
I love it. Well, again, it's just week 1. It's only the first week. We saw a lot of good things. We saw a lot of things, but we are back in action Sunday night at US Bank Stadium against the Atlanta Falcons. We love it, as we tend to do. We'll wrap it up with the Before I Die. Before I die, I won't want to fire my entire fantasy football squad after 1 week, but they were horrible, and I'm so disappointed. I was so happy and proud of the team that I drafted, and they were absolutely atrocious, and so they're all fired, and I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board. But that's just my one Before I Die. As always, don't forget to check out all the rest of the Purple Daily content, all the rest of our Score North content. Lots of good sports action coming at you. On behalf of Leighton, Jason, myself, Jessi, and Ross behind the computer, this is another episode of Before I Die. We will catch you next week, and Yeah, that was it. Go Cyclones.